No, chest. No, he's dead chest.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Lucien. This is Order of Tauren Boot Camp. This is going to be Fighting 101. I'm here with...
I'm Jynx. If you've seen me anywhere at an event, I've probably been drunk and tried to show people how to fight. Yep. For all the Amp Guard guys that are going to be watching this, I'm still around.
Yep. So we wanted to do a fighting video today. Fighting 101. We wanted to go over some basic fighting concepts. If this is your first year fighting or just getting into it, you know, you're going to practice and just discovering this culture and this wonderful games really that we play. Wanted to start you out on a good foot and get you thinking about the right things the next time you go to your practice. Some very, very basics. Hopefully these will apply to most styles of fighting. That's really our aim for this video. Got any critiques? We love constructive criticism, so hope you enjoy it. So first couple of things I'd like to discuss in the video is some terminology. If this is your first year fighting, or maybe you're just confused on certain things, when you're hearing a conversation about a fight or learning from a class and everything, some terms might be a little hazy. So we just wanted to clarify certain things. First one we wanted to do today is a shot. What is a shot? So a shot is quite literally one motion or one series of motions that has the singular intent of harming or killing your opponent. This might be a certain movement to manipulate your opponent, or this might just be a straight swing of your sword. We want to make sure you clarify that, so when you're first getting into fighting and you're just trying to discover and learn more, you can just follow these conversations of what a shot is, and you can understand that when you're talking about one shot, it could be a series of motions, or it could just be one, but it all has one singular intention of harming or killing your opponent. Okay, so what are the we just defined shot for you. We try to put it in a good dictionary terms for you so it's clearly understood. One thing we did want to talk about very briefly was what is a solid legal hit in Dagorhir. I specifically come from Dagorhir, so in other games and some other different parks and wherever you might practice and everything, they might explain it a little bit different. We want to do some demonstrations for you, talk about, you know, very light hits that you maybe shouldn't take. My recommendation, if you're new, if you feel it, you should definitely take it, but you should always refer to your local herald, marshal, anybody who's at a park that is there with some experience in your unit. Talk to them about it and you'll figure it out, but we just wanted to show you a couple of things and try to make it very clear on what most commonly is considered a very legal hit, what you should take and when you should die. So Jynx is going to come join me right here. One of the most common things that happens in Dagorhir, whether you're using a sword, basically anything, is really taking a lot of light hits, a lot of tips, right? So you don't want to take a tip shot, and that's quite very self-explanatory when you're fighting your opponent and you just very lightly graze your opponent. It happens a lot. You should really not take that. You should not take that. What you're looking for in a solid legal shot, and when I say the word solid, that's very key. Very good hit right there. You want solid force behind it, and you really want it to kind of make a sound. Good shots.
Notice the popcorn sound it makes whenever you strike somebody legally.
Yeah, good shot.
When you hear that sound, that's probably a good shot. If you hear something else, notice the lighter tone there.
Yeah.
Not going to be something they take. They're going to shake their head and they're going to keep fighting you.
Yep. You should also pay attention to some of the veteran fighters when they call light. Check your calibration about how much force you're really putting behind your weapon. This also goes for shield breaking with your reds on shields. Again, this is specific to Dagorhir, but it's also good for lots of different other foam fighting games. What you're looking for, again, is a good solid force, that popping sound with the foam, right? And you really want to feel it on your skin. When you're fighting somebody and you're questioning whether their hit is a good legal hit, you really want to kind of feel it for 2 seconds or so right after they hit you. So again, always refer back to your herald, your veterans that are at your practices and in your units, and just be safe out there, guys.
So now that we've defined what a valid shot is, stabs are going to follow the same guideline. I'd like to demonstrate and talk a little bit about center line and what that defines in a fight. Center line is if we were to take a straight line down our foreheads, past our nose, all the way down out our crotch, that's our center line. When we line up center line in most fights, you're going to find the same opportunities in every fight. Generally, that's shoulder to shoulder, that line, that invisible line, and here in a minute I'm going to demonstrate what changing that angle or changing that opportunity will create for you in a fight. So, for this particular demonstration, I'd like to show what changes when you make that shift as a fighter when you begin fighting. All of my time in Dag, I've seen one particular setup with fights, and nobody moves. And from here, we have the same opportunities every time. He can hit my forearm, I can hit his forearm, I can lean a little bit, tag his hip, he can do the same thing to me, so everything's even Steven here. But if I would like to change that opportunity, if I want to change the fight to better my chances of getting rid of this guy in front of me, we need to shift center line. Right now we're center line, nose to nose, shoulder to shoulder, and that creates a static opportunity, at least as I would define it. Static being nothing's going to change, the same 2 or 3 shots will still apply. Now, to change this up, when we take our stances, if I step this way, notice how the opportunities change. His center chop isn't going to land. My chop to his arm, or his back, or his butt, is still going to land. That same opportunity changes again if I step over here. I now have access to the arm. It'll take me a minute to reach his chest due to the fact that I'm using a bit of a shorter equipment here, but the same thing remains. What it's doing is it's causing opportunities in further situations that you'll have other people on that same line that you're fighting with or against. Whereas from here, everyone kind of stays in the same angular direction. Same idea, different angle. So,
one thing to remember for different styles in Dagorhir, lots of people like to talk about angles. This is very, very much what he's talking about right here. Your center line and changing your body position to your opponent to change your opportunities to kill or to injure your opponent. This is the different angles. Spearmen, reds on the field, especially in a line fight, this is very important.
So now we're going to talk about stance, as Lucien can't stop giggling. Stance is actually really, really important in Dagorhir because we, in any foam fighting game really, even in SCA, as they don't fight with foam like we do, stance is going to come down to being ready to defend oneself from any kind of attack in most angles. So you'll have to change a little bit from here to there. But
yeah,
for instance,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, for most styles and most anything you're using, that's we got our blue sticks here. I also kind of wanted an opportunity to show off my new core camera. For any basic style that you're going to start to get into, having a good solid stance and just standing ready for a fight is really, really important. It's a good thing to think about when you start getting into your one-on-ones. When you're doing archery, your feet aren't going to be so much of a concern because you're not going to be proactively worried about being attacked as much. When you're on the front line in a wall or just in sparring, your feet, how you stand, and your distance from your opponent are all things that you want to start to think about. And it's good to start working on good footwork as early as you can.
So an example of bad stance. I see a lot of younger, I say younger, but a lot of fresher fighters.
Yeah.
They take a pretty generic stance, and every time they fight, it's usually very blocky. They don't know what to do with their hands, so they end up standing here, and they get a couple of things happen. They'll get sniped out either by their hips because their arms are way up here, or they'll get that chest chop that really discourages them. They're like, oh, that really hurt, and or they get charged, and when they get charged and bumped by something, they get bumped, right, and they're way out of here. Notice how far I just I completely left the frame. So to stop a lot of that, we go into stance, and stance is nothing more than being able to defend themselves. We're going to go into footwork after this, but stance alone, for a long, long time, it was the 45 degrees off the hip, and that gave us the opportunity to block both sides of our body. Very, very efficient, very energy efficient way of fighting. We switched to a higher stance, at least in Amgard. The new stance du jour is much higher to defend a lot of the upper body shots easier. More of a rotation thing, 1, 2. And we'll get on that later, but this is just my generic take on stance. Being able to defend yourself easily from any given point in time, right? And this is just really easy for me to respond with. Do what works for you. Every body type is different. Every person is different. What I'm doing is not necessarily going to work for you. It won't work for Lucien. It won't work for our fantastic camera person, Jaybird. Everybody is fantastically different in how they fight. Do what's going to feel comfortable and right for you.
Good starting off thoughts on your footwork and your stance. Again, if you feel comfortable, you're probably in a really good spot. However, what you want to do is you kind of want to focus on the balls of your feet a little bit. You just kind of want to feel a little bit of that bounce. You want to be ready to step and step back, and you want to have your knees bent, ready for action. You have to be proactive in this. static stance like this is really just going to make you really stiff. It's going to make you an easy target.
And it's going to knock you over when they check you.
And you're going to die a lot faster unless you're ready to fight. This is a live action, real-time combat. All right. So the next thing we want to talk about is basic survival. And what we want to start with is the house defense. This does mostly come from Amtgard. So if you want to check out some other Amtgard videos that might explain it a little bit better for you, I would definitely recommend going to check those out. House defense is a stance positions, mostly practiced with a single blue, that covers and defends against 4 key quadrants that most shots that are thrown at you will target. So when I'm fighting Jynx here, most of my shots, single blue, red, sword and board, they're all going to basically come in at his shoulders, his arms.
Oh, sorry, arms?
Yeah, arms, and his hip areas. Some of you Dagorhir fighters might be wondering, what about the legs? Shots are definitely thrown at the legs. When you're on a line, you get a lot of pole arms. Your defense of your legs comes from your footwork, and that's a video for another time. Right here, we got the 4 quadrants in which every single shot is going to target to strike you in. So the house defense are 4 key positions used with a single stick to defend those positions and to keep you alive. So
that said, like I was explaining earlier before this video started, when we go into our stance, our typical single blue stance originally started here, at least for Amtgard, when fighting became real technical. We've switched it up to here, and notice there's a 45-degree bend, that natural bend. Like if without this stick, if I wanted to punch Lucy right in the shoulder, this is how I do it. That's typically how you want to hold your stick, where you're most comfortable. Of all the Amtgard guys watching this, yeah, I'm probably missing a lot of things, but I'm fairly certain I'll get the PMs. With block 1, it covers this whole quadrant. Notice that I can't strike Lucian's arm because he's in position. And notice how I snap right back to my guard. I can't do anything, at least from here. It's covered up this whole quadrant here. Now, for those of you who are thinking, well, what about the other side here? That's a good question. Glad you asked. From that point, if I wanted to chop back here and Lucian wanted to block, there's the interception. There's block 2, that covers the other half of our body. So if we came back and I cling, there's block number 2. So we've covered block 1, block 2. Well, what about the hips? Glad you asked that. Fantastic question. From that point, if we wanted to block our hips and we go back to our stance, if I wanted to hit Lucian squaw on the hip and remove him as a threat from my battlefield, if I come down here to swing, notice that he's already blocked off that lane by simply dropping his hand from that original 45 position to here now. What about the other hip? That's another fantastic question. Glad you asked. So if I swing for the other half of that body, notice that he's already got it blocked from over there. Notice how little movement he needs to effectively block those 4 quadrants of the body. Now, with all that put together, if we have block 1 and block 2, we'll rotate a little bit. Notice that we have both quadrants of the body, upper half blocked. The lower 2 quadrants simply make the walls, and now you've formed a complete house. Don't let the rain in. Rain being the shots that you don't want to get hit with. To demonstrate the 4 blocks a little clearer without another person in the way, this would be our first most recognizable block. All my Amtgard guys, I'm sorry if I'm screwing this up and butchering it. Tato, I'm fairly certain I'll hear the PMs later. Block number 1 is here. Block number 2 is simply a pommel rotation to the extreme other 45 degree. So literally it looks like a bus windshield wiper. 1, 2, 1, 2. We go into our lower blocks, 3. Notice that from at least our original position, it's nothing more than a drop. Block 1, block 3, 1, 2, 3, and 4 is literally the other side of the body. So we cross center line to block the other side. Go back to our beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So now we'll go over some common grips, at least 2 that can help you in your current quest to stay alive a little longer on the field, by about that much. So when we first grab a weapon, we grab it much like we would grab a hammer, so we'll call this one the hammer grip, which is actually what it's called. So with no glove, we see that it's just like you would hold a hammer, front view, side view, right? Pretty self-explanatory. If you'd like to drive that nail through the board, you use your hammer grip. And this is a little example of what it does. It allows you to just focus a little more power into your shots. So, for instance, if Lucien were my opponent in this invisible battle that we're at in some invisible realm, and I wanted to hammer this shoulder, notice how much his shield starts to move when I beat on this. There it was. I'm starting to beat on his shield to move it down just enough to really give it that oomph to tag his shoulder. And it's a little sloppy for my amp guard guys, I apologize. The next grip is, of course, the one my favorite, to stop the rattle as we start to swing the stick. It wiggles a little bit in our hand. To stop that, we simply put our thumb up. I've learned this as modified saber. A million other people have learned it in a different form or fashion. What this allows you to do is to have a little bit more control over your sword positioning and throwing multiple shots. What I mean by positioning is, if I throw a shot with this, that bounce is going to take me a little longer to recover from, at least me. I'm no sword knight and amp guard, so we'll carry on with that. When I have my modified saber, I can notice that I can throw the 2 topside shots with bounce a little bit faster, and I can carry over to an arm shot. If you need to throw fakes, which is another video, or if you need to stop the shot because you might hit somebody in the head. If Lucien ducked for some reason and I needed to, I don't want to hit Lucien in the head, he's my buddy, then I can divert it back to a shield. That's a safer alternative than just braining your buddy and him going, oh god, right? No one likes to get hit in the head. So, without a glove, modified saber, hammer grip, and as always, be safe. Try not to use your wrist in a lot of your shots. That'll damage you as far as wrist goes. A lot of fighters who came before have had wrist issues and rotator cuff issues. Take care of yourself. Biggest thing, there is no substitute for a good teacher. If you can find a veteran fighter who shows you how to lock your wrist out so you're not using it when you throw your shots. An example of using wrist for your shot would be if I bent my wrist funny, try to lay it into him like this. Notice the funny wrist angle here, and I'm flopping it around there for effect. That's going to damage your wrist over time just through repetition alone. The better, crisper shot is, notice that the wrist is locked out, like we're chopping wood in Minecraft. I'm just throwing chops all day, and notice that my wrist does not leave its original position unless it's impacting the thing that I'm hitting. Like it's hitting the shield, and it's moving just a little bit, right? So again, no substitute for a good veteran teacher. For your amp guard guys that are watching this, grab a sword knight, grab a squire of a sword knight, grab anybody who looks better than you, and go fight for a while. To the DAG guys, grab your veteran fighters, grab your guys in the best looking garb you can find. If it looks like they know how to fight, grab them, pull them aside, let them beat on you for a while, beat on them for a while. It'll be a great exchange.
Yep. I got nothing.
I have nothing. Last but not least, we're going to cover some how do I put this to bed? How to not be there 101. A lot of guys are like, but I don't want to get hit with that big scary Gorg hammer.
Oh my god. Yeah.
So in order to not get hit with that Gorg hammer, you need to not be there. And in order to do that, we're going to teach what I like to call not being there 101, or run away screaming and then come back when their weapon is swung. That said, there are 3 ranges.
We're going to focus on range here for a second when using distance between you and your opponent as a defensive tool. If they can't reach you, they can't kill you. Very basic concept.
That said, there are 3 ranges. I teach with letters, some people teach with colors. To teach with colors, it's green, yellow, red. If you're teaching with letters, it's CBA. So with that said, I like to teach with a lot of humor if you haven't noticed. So we've got one big guy with a hammer right here. He's pretty imposing. I don't want to get hit with that hammer. Gore-Tex, buy it or die by it.
Oh yeah.
So notice that he can hit me from right here, right? So I don't want to get hit with his hammer because the hammer ouches a lot. He goes, rat, and I go, ow! Oh, God! Right? So in order to not get hit with that, we take a step back, and we're in C range. Notice that I'm probably not even in the frame, and I call this C range because I can wave at him and go, see you at the mall, we ain't fighting right now. Right? I'm going to take that extra step back into range now. We're at B range. 90% of combat's going to happen here. Notice he's probably giving me 1 red. He's out of the way, I move on. Now to get even more dangerous, we step further into range, and now we're in A range. I go, hey, we be fighting. Right? So from back here we have B right there, and C at the mall, because we ain't fighting. That said, in order to close that range, notice that my back foot takes the step. Whatever your back foot is going to cover that range real quick. So back foot, right? We're fighting, bang, bang, bang. Notice that he hops out of range really quick by doing some weird kangaroo Lucy hop. For me, I like to use my footwork in such a way that I use minimal effort to get out of the way. So one step, right? One step, and he can trace me the same way. So he's like, red! I'm like, that's not a red hit. And then he's like, that would be a red hit in slow motion. See that? Range is nothing more than not being there when your opponent has something bigger than you. Or you don't like something that he's doing. If I see Lucien gearing up to give me one hellacious red shot, he's gearing back to here, and I'm like, nope, not today. Notice that I've used one footstep to get out of his range, and he spins around like an angry weeble top. Red!
Once again, this is a very basic concept of being aware of the distance between you and your opponent, whether you're on your line, when you're sparring with a friend, or when you're just in a tournament. Being aware of the distance between you and your opponent is a very good thing to think about. Spears, classic 8-foot spears, you know, you have all that range to reach out and touch your opponent. That's how you are most effective with a spear. And longer weapons, such as reds, is being aware of where you can actually strike your opponent, of where the deadly part is,
And where the not deadly part is.
and where the not deadly part is. That's
Where I
also
like to
very-
call the apologetic part, because you're
Exactly.
saying I'm sorry if you hit him with it.
Yes.
Sorry!
Sorry.
And that, again, that branches off into, and Lucien brings up some very solid points. Knowing your range is key in knowing what equipment you're fighting with. If you have a spear that's 8 feet, your ABC range changes dramatically. The same thing with this fantastic Warhammer. You need to know where you can hit this guy with this part and not this part. So the heralds aren't like, you're a bad red user, get off my field. And you're like, oh.
This takes practice. This takes time as kids getting familiar with the classic lengths of certain different weapons and the ranges that your arm and your whole body can reach to reach your opponent to hurt them, kill them, and be successful in battle. A few last minute tips and just a
Good safety prep.
good safety prep for anybody that's getting new. You notice this entire video we've been wearing our gloves. You'll see this very commonly these days. Amp Guard,
Dagorhir,
Dagorhir, all of foam fighting
Belagarth.
really has these lacrosse gloves. They're really nice. They're really comfortable. MMA gloves are also very common. You're going to get hit in the hand a lot because if you pay attention to your very basics of the MOA, getting hit in the hand counts as a block. So getting hit in the hand is going to happen a lot. These gloves cover almost all of your hand. And you also notice I'm wearing wrist wraps for my wrist support. We talked about grips a little bit. We talked about safety on throwing a lot of shots into your wrist and throwing out that joint. You don't want to hurt yourself, guys.
Most of your common bruises from hand blocking or blocking with any part of your hand come from along the knuckle line, in between the knuckles, along these knuckles here, in between here. A lot of thumb bruising will happen, and you get raw spots from holding your weapons for so long in the palm of your hand. Using these gloves is a fantastic lifesaver. Anyone who can find me or Lucien online, we're more than willing to give you the links that I personally use to get cheap gloves. These were $20.
Nobody's a He-Man out there. Be safe. We recommend using the gloves. If you'll see me on the field, you'll see lots of other fighters with basic
Knee pads.
volleyball knee pads. Really cheap, really easy to go pick up and just slap them on. That way you're protecting your joints. Good solid shoes, protect your feet. You want to be safe, you want to stay hydrated, guys. Fighting takes a lot of energy, especially on those hot Ragnarok days. You're in the middle of the sun and there's no shade. Again, be safe, guys. Have fun. That's what it's for. Thanks for watching.
Warrior with my stick flipped up. Party grip. Quick. All right, let's go. We're going, guys. We're like,
Oh,
but I don't want to get hit with that big scary Gorg hammer.
my god. Yeah.
So in order to not get, wiggle your stick. Do it. Wiggle it. Touch it. There you go. All right.
Okay.
It's a handle.